to the next Jesse Palmer podcast, featuring everyone's favorite brother duo, Ian and Kyle DuPont.
I do feel that there were a lot of things that were completely inappropriate. Okay.
Happy holidays and welcome to the first ever video podcast for the Queen's Law Fantasy Football League. I'm here live with my brother Ian. How's it going, Ian?
Going great. Great holiday season. Time to, love your brother. Good to see you.
Yeah, the greatest brother duo is live and coming right at you.
You're not getting this from the Gronkowski brothers, that's for sure.
No, definitely not from the Gronkowski brothers. So, we're backed up 2 weeks in the football here, so we got a lot to talk about. So I'm going to jump right in. Drew Brees on Monday night set the record, beating your Dan Marino's single-season passing record. But we have New Orleans, one of the greatest offensive teams, but they lack a defense. Can they make a serious playoff run?
Yeah, it was very sad to see the Dan Marino's 25-plus year record go down. And it was so hard because Drew Brees, a couple years ago, he should have been a Miami Dolphin. I would have loved to have seen him set the record in a Miami Dolphins uniform. But it's pretty impressive statistics. They're 5,000 yards passing. I mean, they've got a great offense. They don't run the ball that much. They just throw it a lot of dump offs. And he's a great player, and they can certainly put up the points to win a lot of games. And I mean, there was questions that he was running up the score. But, they didn't know for certain how they're going to play their starters in Week 17. So it's better he got the record then than waiting next week on the home field and all that. But yeah, the defense is definitely a question mark. I know it's a theme we've kind of mentioned a lot of times, but their defense isn't that great. They kind of stopped Matt Ryan with a few turnovers, but he did pass for over 350 yards on them. So we'll see. It's going to be a shootout. They went with a couple of the teams they're going to face. Green Bay, definitely. It'll be a high-scoring game. You're going to have to be able to stop someone. You're not going to get Matty Ice. You're going to face Aaron Rodgers at some point in the playoffs. So it'll be tough. They really are missing the most hottest hitting safety in the league, Darren Schiappa.
And definitely a big diagnosis across the top, I'd say, three teams in the league with Green Bay, as you mentioned, as well as the New England Patriots. They both have amazing offenses, but pretty weak on the defensive end. So with these three top teams, do you see any of them in the Super Bowl, or do you think it'll come to just an offensive shootout playoff race?
Well, it's really tough. There's a lot of, once the playoffs are all set, I mean, it's anyone's game, really. You're going to, if you can stop the Packers or the Saints or the Patriots from getting 30 points, you might win that game. But again, if you have that type of defense, like a San Francisco 49ers team always comes to mind. I mean, they're first across the board in all the defensive stats. You've got Alex Smith, and I don't think he can put up 30 points on you. And David Akers ain't going to get 10 field goals every week. So it's hard to say. You need the good combination of things, and I think a team like Pittsburgh is, as long as Ben Roethlisberger can be healthy, they have the defense to stop you, and then they also have a pretty good offense that can put up that 30 points if you need it.
All right. You kind of mentioned about they were planning to sit Drew Brees for Week 17, and a lot of teams who have clinched their playoff spots tend to do that. So Aaron Rodgers probably won't play. Tom Brady probably won't play. Things like that. So what's your take on teams sitting guys in the final week? Because by not playing their star players, there's that chance that a team that probably would have lost could win and totally change around the entire playoff situation.
Yeah, it's always a question that comes up every year. And since the Packers aren't playing for that perfect season, they've got home field locked up. I know you're going to see Rodgers for maybe one series, going to get a heavy dose of Matt Flynn to Randall Cobb, as Week 17 fantasy people should take note. But it's a risky move playing these guys. You don't want them hurt, but if you've got something to play for, I mean, I like how they've set up the games where someone like San Francisco and New Orleans fighting for that second seed, their games are at the same time, so they don't really know when they should rest guys. Another one is Baltimore, Pittsburgh. They're both fighting for the division. If Baltimore wins, they get the second seed in the bye. If they lose, they could end up being 5th, playing the West Division champ.
And with that, see, you have Baltimore playing Cincinnati, and if Baltimore knows they're going to win, like have their clinch of the playoff spot, they might sit guys, giving Cincinnati an easier opportunity to win the game, which could change the wild card when they could potentially lose it and another team could take over.
Yeah, it's interesting with the bye because, like, if I was Baltimore, I might lay down the game, like let's let Cincinnati get in. We don't want anyone hurt this week, and then we're going to get a crappy team in Denver or Oakland. But then again, a bye is very important. We want that extra week off. Like, you've seen it in the past. I remember Cincinnati or someone laid down, or Indianapolis laid down for New York Jets in the final week, and then it was a rematch the week after that, and then bam, the Jets came out and beat them, or was the Bengals? I don't know. But, it can come back to haunt you. This year in the baseball playoffs, for sure, we saw that. Like, Philadelphia, they kind of let the Braves, or they beat the Braves, and then the Braves were out, but then had they won, you wouldn't have had the run by the Cardinals. But then the same thing with Tampa Bay, them getting in, the Yankees probably should have let them lose because Tampa Bay was a good team. So you never know. It can go either way. There's going to be a couple interesting battles this weekend. The 6th seed, Cincinnati wants to win, but Tennessee's got a good shot at getting in there, and then the Jets and the other West champ.
Yeah, that's something we'll come back to later. A big wild card segment is going to be set up for you guys. In the past few weeks, there's been a lot of key injuries to key players on a lot of different teams. We saw Peterson go down, saw Romo hurt his hand. So what do you think is the biggest injury that has happened in the past couple weeks in regards to right now and looking into the future?
Ooh, biggest injury. I mean, I keep saying it. Biggest injury of the season is not Peyton Manning. I mean, that team was going to be bad either way. I say it all the time, but Jay Cutler, the broken finger, is probably the injury of the season. That team was rolling. He was finally clicking with that offense, and he's going to have a nice engagement this summer, but he'd rather be playing for the playoffs, and don't question his toughness, but that one kind of cost Chicago. Big injury, like the Tony Romo one, luckily he didn't break his hand or anything like that, and that was a game they really didn't need to have.
But they need to have the game this weekend, and with him, I believe it is his throwing hand, he probably won't be an ace of a thrower hitting Miles Austin and Laurent Robinson giving me fantasy points. So
yeah, Tony Romo cost a few people some fantasy championships.
Big fat zero.
Big fat zero. But it's the Romo coaster you were riding on. But I don't know. At that point they didn't know that the Giants had the game locked up. Maybe Jason Garrett should have sat Tony Romo. We'll never know. Long-term injury, Adrian Peterson. That's a pretty tough injury. I mean, he was the man on that team all day, Adrian Peterson. So looking forward, it's tough. He was looking for a contract. Other running backs, Matt Forte, Fred Jackson. These are big injuries for these guys' careers because they were looking, for that long-term contract. And these were centerpieces of those offenses of those teams. So next year, these are going to be the things that are going to affect things. Playoff-wise, I don't know about Houston. The quarterback, Matt Schaub, might have made a difference. We'll see who they face in round one, but injuries have definitely been a factor this season in the playoff hopes and demises of many teams.
We talked about teams going 0-16 and 16-0 this year. It's not going to happen. The Colts have came out, they've won 2 straight games, and they beat Houston, to everyone's surprise, Houston, which is a playoff team. So now we have a 2-way tie in the Suck for Luck sweepstakes. Who's getting luck in the draft?
I know, I'm glad we're coming back to this. And maybe, just maybe, my St. Louis Rams will technically have won the suckment because they suck so bad and are going to end up with the Andrew Luck. Oh, I don't know. I was messaging some of my friends saying, well, I think the AFC South has a conspiracy going on. Houston phoned up Jacksonville, like, guys, we got to lose to the Colts. We can't have this Andrew Luck in our division for the next 10 years. And I think a lot of it, it's hard to tank a season in football, they say. You can't go out there and not give it your all because you might get hurt. Basketball's a little different, like miss a shot. Hockey, we'll put our bad guys out there. You can tank to get that number 1 pick. But I think these Indianapolis Colts, they've been Peyton Manning's teammates for the last 10, 15 years. They want to win for him. They want to not have that question going into the offseason, well, what do we do? What do we do? So looking into this weekend, the Rams ain't going to win. They're playing San Francisco 49ers, putting out Kellen Clemens, I believe. Bradford's done. They're not going to win. So it's really about that Jacksonville, Indianapolis Colts game. And, you know, the Colts can win. These teams are pretty even. And, like, Maurice Jones-Drew is the only real player on Jacksonville that's going to be trying. He wants that rushing crown, but I don't even know who their quarterback's going to be this week. Blaine Gabbert is not going to help. So, you know, the Rams look like they might get that suck for luck, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with that because they have a number one pick who they just drafted 2 years ago in Sam Bradford. But, you know, Luck's getting picked first overall. You know, once we know for sure who's drafting, we'll see. There might be some trades. The Matt Barkley staying at USC really is killing teams like Miami. I'm not too happy about that, so we'll see.
All right, so now I have a leading question to our new suckman. So I bet you could guess it is a Tebow question. Tebow and the Broncos, they need to win to clinch that playoff spot because they are tied right now with Oakland. So how does our suckment end this year? Are we going to have a Bronco victory or will we see the Oakland Raiders for Chris Horkins?
The classic Horkins versus Mike debate here. I mean, really, as soon as Horkins took that team, the hashtag Horkins curse really fell onto that team. I mean, they were looking hot. They had a one-game lead, and they just coughed it up. And as late as last week, all four teams were still in the race. So you got to look at the matchups. Oakland, I think they're going to win that game because San Diego's just got no pride, nothing to play for. Why are they even going to go out there? So that's a game that Oakland can win. They're going to want to win. Whereas Kansas City, it's kind of going to be like a grudge match game. You've got Kyle Orton facing off against Tim Tebow, the quarterback who replaced him. And Kansas City's kind of been playing hard late for the new interim coach. You know, Romeo Crennel, never bet against them, but...
And you can't bet against KC, seeing that my team did defeat the Green Bay Packers and ruin their undefeated season. So that is a quality team, and Tebow and the Broncos aren't that quality of a team. So I'm leaning towards KC taking that game, and so it might be an Oakland
It'll be interesting. Tebow hasn't had the miracles in the last two games, but I think we got a phone call. I think we've got our guest.
All right. Hello, Mike out there in Western Canada. How's your holidays going?
Hey, guys. So happy to be on the first video podcast live.
Mike, you're not on video. We have you on the phone. It's just Ian and I on video podcast. But yeah, you're the first call in for the podcast.
Oh, I wore my Lofa Topa 2 jersey for nothing then. I was all excited here drinking Seattle's best coffee from my Christmas present Tassimo coffee maker.
Well, Mike, word on the street was you were at the San Francisco-Seattle game on Christmas Eve. Did you enjoy watching your Seahawks take a little bit of a beating?
Oh, it was a sad day, but I did get to see Tavares Jackson throw a touchdown to our favorite Baldwin brother Doug. Don't take him off an airplane. Bam! And we got to see Marshawn Lynch eating the Skittles, beast mode, running up and down the field, scoring touchdowns against the vaunted San Francisco defense.
Well, we just started our weekly Suckment talk, and I threw out the Tebow question and the fact that Tebow has to win this week to get into the playoffs. So, do you see Tebow keeping your AFC Suckment hopes alive?
Well, it's been a tough 2 weeks sitting in the basement studying the plays for Tim Tebow. He's got to come back and find it. The miracles just haven't been there. But if he taught me one thing in the Nepalese mountains, is to never give up hope. Because even the best teams can go through hard times. And I think that Timmy Tebow out in the Mile High Stadium is going to come through with a victory, a miracle, the Mile High Messiah, and win and get into the playoffs.
Well, Mike, as usual, it was great having you call in. Too bad we couldn't have you here in the studio with us talking football, but we'll make sure to get a hold of you again next week when we come at you for our end of this season podcast.
Well, I'll definitely be in there just because I'll be getting ready to watch Jimmer Fredette tear up the NBA season this year, too.
All right, Mike, nice chatting with you. Well, Ian, what do you think of Mike's comments there?
Very interesting, very interesting. I think, Tebow's got a good shot. They got the home field game, but like we just said earlier, Kansas City's tough, and he has lost that magical fourth quarter comeback stuff that he had. So we'll see. I don't know if he's got it in him, but you never know. Oakland could hand them an easy loss. They've stumbled a lot, and Denver could squeak in there.
All right. Let's get to some wild card talk because this is what I think everyone wants to hear right now. We got big races both in the NFC and AFC, and I'd like to start off with the AFC. Just straight up question, who's taking that final wild card spot?
I don't know. If I had to bet, I would want to bet on the Tennessee Titans just because the way the schedule plays out. I think the Jets, they've been a sham. They have not been a playoff team. You've seen it the last 2 weeks. Dirty Sanchez is just plain old dirty. He may be spending his late nights with Kate Upton, teaching him how to Dougie, but she needs to teach him how to play quarterback, that's for sure. So they're going to lose. Cincinnati, that's a tough game. Baltimore's not a great team on the road, but Cincinnati, I don't know. Both teams are going to play. Both teams need to win that. Baltimore wants that bye. They want the second seed. So it's going to be a tough game. I don't know. Andy Dalton's going to come to play. A.J. Green's going to be there. They're going to have the defense. It's going to depend on what Joe Flacco does, but I think Ray Rice and the Ravens will get it done. And then Tennessee, that game, Houston, no matter what the outcome of their game, they have the third seed locked up. So I think it's going to be, we'll rest our guys. A lot of Ben Tate, Aaron Foster won't be out there. Their defensive players will rest. Andre Johnson will likely not see the field. So I think that's an easy win for Tennessee. And I don't know exactly what the scenario is, but I think Tennessee needs either one of Oakland or Denver to lose. And I think one of those teams easily could lose. So, I think Tennessee's going to sneak in there. Matty Hasselback has taken lesser teams to the playoffs before. And, maybe this is the year. Cop speed comes through in the playoffs. He's kind of been a ghost this year, but we'll see. So that's what I put my money on. I don't like it, but, Cincinnati's the best team. I'd like to see them get in there, but if I'm a betting man, that's what I'm going to put my money on.
So we're going to move here to the NFC wildcard debate. Both spots are taken by Detroit and Atlanta, if I am correct. But from my understanding, we don't know who is the fifth and the sixth team, which plays out because they will either be playing.
It's a important seeding, and a lot of people say, well, no one cares. You get a wild card, you're on the road, whatever. But this is an important matchup. If you're the sixth seed, you're going to play either San Francisco or New Orleans, whichever one ends up in third. And I don't want to play either of those teams. Atlanta doesn't want to play New Orleans for a third time. Detroit doesn't want to play New Orleans again. And then you don't want to play that D in San Fran. So the fifth seed is very important because you're going to get either the Dallas Cowboys or the New York Giants who, you never get even half a team out there. So that's the game you want. You want that fifth seed. Detroit's lucky in that they've got Green Bay this week. So it looks like it's their fifth seed to lose. They're going to play their guys. They want to win that game. Green Bay is not going to be out there. So I think they get it. But if they lose and Atlanta wins, then Atlanta's going to be getting in there. And Atlanta's going to play hard. I think they've got either Carolina or Tampa Bay. Probably Tampa Bay. So that's going to be a game that they're going to want to win, going to play hard. Matty Ice, as Betty White called him, Matty Steamy, because he's so hot. Was not so hot. He's going to have to look like they're going to turn it around. But we'll see. I think fifth and sixth, how they are now, is how it's going to play out.
All right. So right now you mentioned the Dallas Cowboys and the Giants, who will take that final playoff spot, that fourth seed. So my question is, just straight up, who's going to win, Dallas or the Giants?
Well, this comes back to the question we've asked many times this year. Who is underrated? Who is overrated? Eli Manning versus Tony Romo. And I think that's it. You throw everything out the window. It's these quarterbacks. It's going to be a drive. It's going to be a drive in the fourth quarter where one of these quarterbacks is going to either win the game or lose the game. And, I feel like I got to go with Eli. I mean, he's been the better Manning brother this year, no doubt about it. And he's just, the Romo coaster, you just can't count him. You just can't count on him. I mean, he's going to do something stupid. They're going to drop the ball, and it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. And if I had to pick, I'd take Eli Manning as my quarterback. So I think it's going to be the Giants winning that division. Unfortunately, another playoff December disappointment for Dallas. It's tough. I liked them a month ago, and it's looking like it's going to be the G-Men.
I agree. I would be taking the Giants on this one for sure, too. I've been riding on the Romo coaster with my fantasy team, and some weeks I'm like, best trade ever, and then other weeks I just want to kick myself and say, why did I do that? But, yeah, like you said, Romo cannot perform in these big games. We've seen it year after year after year. So I am going to go with Eli, who has a Super Bowl ring, and he knows how to win big, big games. So I'm going to head into our little fantasy sequence or section or whatever you want to call it right now. The top 3 seeds are set, the top 3 positions. Whoever's getting paid, they know they're getting paid. But the question is, who's getting second and who's getting third? I think you have a 50-point lead maybe on Chris.
I think it's about 29 points last time I checked.
I was giving you more there, but
he got some lovely Jordy Nelson gift wrap TDs for Christmas that I wasn't too happy about. Narrowed the gap, and I don't know, I had a couple stinkers out of my games, but right now I'm 29 points or so ahead of him, which is good.
Well, do you think you can fend him off, or do you think he's got 29 points you can throw on top of your head this week?
Well, I mean, I think personally, obviously, I think I'm going to beat him. But
Are you a little scared?
I'm not so scared because he's got those Green Bay guys. He's got the Donald Driver, the Jordy Nelson. Those guys aren't going to play. And, I checked the waiver wires this morning. He must have been sleeping in and didn't make any bids because Horkins did not pick up anyone. And, I went in there and picked up some guys that I might throw in to start because I myself have some guys who might sit. LaShawn McCoy is hurt. I mean, Brandon Marshall's going to be on Revis Island. I don't love Tim Tebow in this matchup. But, Horkins has Cam Newton, which is always scary. He can throw up 35-plus points like he did last week. And that's what I'm scared of. But, his receivers aren't going to play. Frank Gore's not going to play. Rob Gronkowski's probably not going to play the whole game either. So he's looking to his bench, and his bench is pretty thin. So I think, this is what makes this league fun in that we have this random 17th week where you have to kind of scramble for points. I wouldn't like this in a head-to-head league. I would never have a championship on week 17. It's too unpredictable because those guys who have Aaron Rodgers are screwed. But, for the way ours is, it's a year-long thing, and this is what you got to plan for. You got to plan for week 17, and I think I planned a lot better than he did.
All right, so we'll go from the top to the bottom. I'm sitting in second last place. Do you think I can fend him off and not fall into the basement where Alex is right now?
I think you're lucky in that, the same sort of thing. It's lucky that you have guys who are going to be playing. All your Dallas Cowboys are going to be playing. There's going to be points there for them. And, Alex's team, he's got Brady. Brady's probably going to sit. I don't know what running back he's going to throw out there this week to get a 0 for him, but he always does that. And, I don't know. I think you can hold him off. Michael Turner wasn't spectacular. I thought he might have gained some points on Monday night, and he didn't. So I think you can hold him off, and Alex will be hoisting the Sacco Bowl, or we've named it something else, but it's probably, we'll keep that between us.
All right. One last fantasy question. It is the end of the season. Did you learn anything this year and something that you might change for next season, Queen's Law Fantasy Football?
Yeah, I think everyone was generally happy with the scoring system, so we won't change that. That's a good thing. The PPR, when it was really well received, the extra flex position, also very good. So I think the only thing I mentioned before will probably be the payouts. we'll have like a regular season champ, and then we'll have like a playout, so that it's a little more fun in these last 3 weeks. I think the major thing I learned is how important the quarterback is. Because out of the 10 teams in the league, I probably have the weakest quarterback scenario. And that was something I didn't think would be a problem. And then this year you get monster seasons out of Cam Newton, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. And like if I had, two of the top 3 teams have those quarterbacks there. And, while running back is important, I picked the 2 of the top 3, I think, in McCoy and Rice. But I spent a lot on them. And I think what we learned this year is, and every year, you can pick up star running backs off the waiver wire. There's always going to be a DeMarco Murray. There's always going to be a Marshawn Lynch who falls far down and is worth a lot more. There's always going to be like a Matt Forte or Fred Jackson who's undervalued. So I think you've got to go quarterbacks, get your stud quarterbacks, and then like tight end, another thing. We've seen the year of the tight end for sure, and that's going to be interesting. I mean, I've mentioned it. Going with 2 tight ends might be the way to go next year. If someone wants to break their bank getting Gronkowski and Jimmy Graham, I might be that person, so watch out. But that is a strategy that will be considered.
All right, well, that ends our holiday podcast. We'll be coming at you in the new year with the wrap-up podcast heading into the playoffs. Thanks for watching.